Well, hello and welcome to Tales from South Florida, the podcast where we explore the people, places, and events that help shape the Sunshine State that we know and love today. Thank you so much for hitting that play button. It means so much to us. Today, we're traveling back to a time before Miami existed. There was a time before Miami existed? Yes, there was. It was before the skyscrapers and the cruise ships and international fame and Miami Vice. We're going to explore the story of William and Mary Brickell, the pioneering family whose vision, determination, and partnership with Julia Tuttle helped create the city of Miami. Their names remained all around us today, but many people, including yours truly, knew very little about the remarkable story behind them. So join me as we take another talk down memory lane. Hey, before I begin today, I would like to shout out to one of the loyal listeners of the podcast, Mark M. Mark wrote to ask some questions and provide some information regarding the episode we did a little while back on Julia Tuttle and Eddie Rickenbacker. That email led to this episode. So thanks, Mark. And if you, like Mark, would like to contribute an idea or ask a question or just comment on an episode, please feel free to email me at talesfromsouthflorida@gmail.com or use the SpeakPipe link in the show notes or on the podcast website, talesfromsouthflorida.com. Now, long before Miami became a city, this area was home to the Tequesta people. I'm sure you've heard that name also, just like Brickell and Julia Tuttle and everything else. The Tequesta people lived along the banks of the Miami River and Biscayne Bay for centuries. Now, the river, that was the center of life for them. It provided food and transportation, access to the surrounding waters. The name Miami is actually believed to have originated from the word Miami, spelled M-A-Y-A-I-M-I, which referred to the native people and large waters of the region. Now, during the 19th century, the area remained sparsely populated. There was a military outpost. It was known as Fort Dallas. It stood near the Miami River during the Seminole Wars. A few settlers attempted to establish communities, but the region basically remained isolated because, frankly, it was pretty difficult to reach. In fact, before incorporation, the settlement was commonly known simply as the Village of Miami, a name I still kind of like, or the Miami River Settlement. Few people imagined it would someday become one of America's most famous cities. Now, all of that began to change, the isolation, the small growth, back in 1871. William Brickell and his wife Mary arrived from Cleveland, Ohio. They immediately recognized the potential of the area and purchased large tracts of land on the south side of the Miami River. You know, I have to tell you something. I've been doing these stories now for 2.5 years, and one of the things that just astounds me about the Julia Tuttles and the Brickells and the Stranahans was that they came from areas that were pretty well populated, and even coming to Florida, they didn't stop in the northern part, which was a little more populated, so the St. Augustine or Jacksonville or maybe even the Panhandle area. They came all the way down to, just think about it, just swamps and mosquitoes and alligators, native life. I mean, you have to wonder just how incredibly beautiful and peaceful it had to have been to keep attracting people back in the mid and late 1800s. Anyway, the Breckells established a trading post that quickly became the center of commerce for the region. Now, if you recall the story of Frank Stranahan from an earlier episode, you'll recognize the similarities in the stories, although Stranahan, of course, charted that course in Broward County in what was to become Fort Lauderdale. The Brickell trading post supplied settlers, fishermen, sailors, Bahamians, Native Americans with everything from food and tools to household goods. For many years, if someone needed supplies along the Miami River, there was only one place to go. They visited the Breckells. Mary Brickell, well, she proved every bit as influential as her husband. She managed the business operations. She maintained relationships with local residents. She became one of the most respected people in the settlement. See, the Brickells weren't merely surviving in South Florida. They were building a future for themselves and for the city that they envisioned. In 1891, another visionary arrived. Her name was Julia Tuttle. We spoke about her in a previous episode that I mentioned before. I'll put a link in the show notes, or you can just go to the website, talesfromsouthflorida.com, and look for the episode titled Julia Tuttle and Eddie Rickenbacker. Now, like the Brickells, she also had roots in Cleveland, Ohio. There must have been some marketing going on in Cleveland, Ohio around that time to get people to South Florida, right? After purchasing approximately 640 acres on the north side of the Miami River, Julia Tuttle moved and became the Brickells' neighbor. Together, Julia Tuttle on the north side, William and Mary Brickell on the south side, they controlled much of the land that would eventually become downtown Miami. And over time, a friendship developed. You see, the Brickells and Julia, they shared a common belief that the Miami River area was going to become something extraordinary. The challenge was in convincing the rest of the world. Enter someone we talked about before also in another episode, a man named Henry Flagler. You see, Flagler was already one of America's wealthiest businessmen. He was building the Florida East Coast Railway down south along the Atlantic coast. And wherever the railroad went, development followed. Populations grew because the railroad represented opportunity. But there was a problem for the Brickells and Julia Tuttle. Flagler had no plans to extend his railroad all the way to Miami. He was going to stop where he was up in the Palm Beach area. At the time, this area was simply too remote and too small to justify the expense. The dream of a thriving city remained just that, a dream. But then nature intervened. During the winters of 1894 and 1895, a devastating freeze struck much of Florida. Citrus groves throughout central and northern Florida were destroyed, but farther south, something remarkable happened. The Miami River area, it escaped the freezes. So while citrus trees died elsewhere, orange trees around Miami continued producing fruit and blossoms. Julia Tuttle immediately recognized an opportunity, and according to one of Florida's most famous stories, she sent fresh orange blossoms to Henry Flagler as proof that Miami's climate remained frost-free. Her message was simple. If you want a reliable tropical destination, bring your railroad to Miami. And while Julia Tuttle often receives the credit for convincing Flagler, she was not acting alone. William and Mary Brickell joined her efforts. Together, they offered land, cooperation, and support for railroad construction and future development. You see, the Brickells understood a railroad would change everything. Their land, it's a little bit of personal stuff here, a little bit of selfishness. Their land would become more valuable. New residents would arrive, but more importantly, a city could finally emerge from the wilderness. The combined efforts of Julia Tuttle and the Brickells ultimately persuaded Henry Flagler to move forward with bringing the train southward. And together, they created one of the most important partnerships in Florida history. It was on April 13, 1896, that Henry Flagler's railroad finally arrived in Miami, and almost immediately workers and investors and settlers followed. The isolated settlement suddenly found itself connected to the rest of Florida, not just Florida, to the rest of the nation. And just a few months later, on July 28, 1896, Miami officially incorporated as a city. The population numbered only about 300 residents, yet the foundation had been laid for extraordinary growth. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Florida. Miami had officially been born. So why was it named Miami? Well, we talked before about the translation or the naming that the Native Americans were using, but some residents reportedly suggested naming the city after Henry Flagler. Well, if I were Julia Tuttle and the Brickells, I'd kind of be upset with that. But Flagler declined the offer. So man, think about it. Instead of Miami Vice, it would have been Flagler Vice. Flagler, Florida. I think there is one, just not down here. Fortunately, the community chose to preserve the historic local name connected to the Miami River and the ancient Miami people. The name honored the region's earliest history and created a unique identity for this unique new city. Following incorporation, Miami expanded rapidly. Flagler's Railroad brought visitors and investors, and throughout this growth, the Brickell family remained among the city's most influential landowners. William Brickell continued participating in civic affairs until his death in 1908. His wife, Mary, remained a powerful force in shaping the city's future and became one of Miami's most important property owners. In many ways, she was every bit as influential as Julia Tuttle. And today, historians increasingly recognize Mary Brickell as one of Miami's true co-founders. More than a century later, the Brickell name remains one of the most recognizable names in South Florida. The most obvious tribute is Brickell Avenue. The roadway developed through land originally owned by the Brickell family, and it became one of Miami's most important streets. Today, Brickell Avenue serves as the backbone of Miami's financial district, and every day thousands travel along the road bearing the family name. And then there's the Brickell neighborhood itself. Originally part of the Brickell's vast land holdings, the area became known during the early 20th century for elegant waterfront estates and wealth. Over time, it evolved into the modern financial center we know today. Brickell is now often called the Manhattan of the South or Wall Street South. Yet its name, it still honors those early pioneers. Brickell Key, that's another reminder of the family's influence. Named in honor of Mary Brickell, the island stands as a lasting tribute to one of Miami's most important founders. I'll be back in just a moment to continue the story of the Brickell family. Hi, this is Bill Monty, and if you enjoy the podcast, sharing episodes, spreading the word, well, truly that means a lot, and it helps the show grow like you wouldn't believe. But if you'd like to support the podcast a little further, I ask you to please click the Buy Me a Coffee link that you can find in the show notes. Your support helps offset production and hosting costs so I can keep bringing you more stories, memories, and conversations in each episode. And besides, podcasting is a thirsty business, so I appreciate you filling my cup with some Joe. Hey, thanks for listening. Thank you for being part of the journey. And if you can, thank you for buying me a cup of coffee. When people think about Miami's founding, Julia Tuttle often receives much of the attention, and deservedly so, as we talked about in the previous episode. But Miami would not exist as we know it today without William and Mary Brickell. They established the area's economic foundation. They operated the trading post that supported the early settlers. They invested in the region when few others would. They knew enough to partner with Julia Tuttle, and they knew enough to help convince Henry Flagler. Beyond that, they donated valuable land that helped make railroad expansion possible. Without the Brickells, well, obviously there would not have been a Brickell Avenue, a Brickell neighborhood, but more importantly, perhaps there would not even be a Miami as we know it. Their legacy surrounds us every day. And maybe, until this moment, most people didn't realize it. But now you know the rest of their story. Hey, thank you for joining me on this journey through the history of William and Mary Brickell and the founding of Miami. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and share it with others who enjoy stories about Florida's history. And don't forget to visit talesfromsouthflorida.com for more episodes, links to our YouTube channels, and if you'd like to support the podcast, that's where you'll find the Buy Me a Coffee link there as well. But don't be misled. Listening to every episode, being here as we take our talks down memory lane, and listening all the way to the end to help support the algorithms of the different platforms, that support means so much, and it is deeply appreciated. Until the next time, my friends, I remind you, please, be safe and be kind.
Let's take a talk down memory lane, 'cause the stories around here are just insane. Pirates World, the Sporto and Wood. Palm Beach to Key West, that's where we grew. These are the tales from South Florida for you, with your host, Bill Monty.
Hello, friends. Bill Monty here, and I'm inviting you to join me on the podcast, Bill Monty's Guide for Getting Older. Now, this is not a podcast about being old. No, it's about understanding the world we're growing older in, how we care for each other, how we protect what we've built, and how we make sense of the systems that are supposed to look out for us, especially when we need them the most. Bill Monty's Guide for Getting Older. It is available wherever fine podcasts can be found, and I look forward to talking with you soon.